Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to talk about this article today. It is about 5 ways AI is quietly reshaping everyday life in 2026. Now, this may scare some of you that your data have been mistreated, and this is why I personally feel, as someone who came from the cybersecurity space, and what we see, and I'm just telling you the real, sometimes, we can only protect so much. And some companies don't afford the tools they need. They don't make the investment into cybersecurity. So you have a lot of professionals or people who are trying to get into cybersecurity, but you still have a lot of companies who don't take it seriously enough. Yet, when they're breached, because breaches happen a lot, they happen a lot. Sometimes you only hear of them because you come across the article if you're a person who likes to read a lot and not depend just on the media as far as visual video media. Or again, someone in the field who interviews them, because sometimes you'll have cybersecurity companies or firms reach out to these companies and interview them because their whole objective is to understand what happened, how it happened, so they can kind of bring awareness, because that's a part of the profession. We like to bring awareness on what's going on, so you have your good side and your bad side. But in pertaining to this article, I'm still a person who's a big proponent of human innovation and ingenuity. And today I just wanted to go over what's happening, so you hopefully don't, take this as a scared thing of being scared, or, you have some people are like, well, AI isn't in this yet, or is not in that yet. Sometimes, people don't like change, and that happens regardless of AI that was coming or is here now. People didn't like change back then, right? In different types of areas of society, people like to stick with their tradition. So if you're someone who doesn't want to think like that, and understand the whole art, I call it the art of human society, and where we came from, where we are projected to come from not having any structure, infrastructure. We're talking about humans existing over 300 to 600,000 years ago compared to now, right? Now we're in the era where we have AI, we have artificial intelligence, right? And if you're someone who's into those cool movies like I am, I'm one of those type of movie nerds. I like robot movies or some crazy thriller or I just like all that stuff, right? Not saying it's going to happen, but our minds are already thinking like that. So you have to understand that our brains are already thinking like that. When um, you're sleeping and you're dreaming, you're already thinking like that. The downloads that you're getting, some of them can call it downloads from God, prayers, or whatever you want to talk about it. But I believe, there's just this higher intelligence, because I just don't like to minimize the thought, an idea of a God, um, being specifically, to a Bible, and it's really what men in our ideologies or our thought processes think of what a God is. So that's part of when you're reading certain religious texts, versus now we're going to the moon, or we're looking to go to Mars, or we're looking to explore more. Even if there's not humans in those shuttles, you still have sometimes animals that are being sent out there, or just machines in general that are going out there with these great cameras to go and track the space, right? But for this article, you know, I want you to think of before you leave your house today. Your phone already knows where you were going. And that's if you have your locations on. Some people aren't with that. I don't have my Google locations on all the time. That doesn't mean Google isn't still trying to track me, but I usually do not have any of that on. And most of the time I can tell because when I go to search something on Google Maps to go somewhere, none of my search history is there again. So that's what I, want to see on the surface end. But again, it doesn't mean that Google may not have some other ulterior stuff going on. So your search engine is usually already finished, right? Your thoughts before you typed it. If you're someone maybe who's maybe spiritual, who may be paying attention, sometimes you could think of something and you're seeing the ad, or you're seeing certain stuff. It may freak some of you out, right? It may freak you out. Sometimes I'm not gonna lie, I know that I want something to appear, so I just put it in my mind and I'm like, man, I know it's going to pop up for me. Sometimes it works. I'm not, again, not to freak some of you out, but it's just how I understand how we work, even on the spiritual level, even when there's technology, right? Um, so let's talk about some of these different types of apps, right? You got fitness apps that already logged your sleep without you pressing a single button. You have or matter of fact, nobody really told you AI was running any of that stuff behind the scenes. Now, before some of us called it AI, engineers or software developers, some of them were already automating stuff behind the scenes, or what we call, some people would call it the algorithm, right? So you have a lot of this going on, some math, certain, depending on what it is, physics, when you're talking about robotics and robots, you have some of this stuff already happening, right? So it just did it, right? You would just be like, well, what? This is happening. I can just search something, or my sleep is being logged, and this is how some companies like Google, for example, I'll just use Google as an example because I did an early stage pilot for them and I worked with them, and that's how I got to understand more of how they're getting funded for different things. Like Google Maps is its own investment pool. YouTube is its own, other investment pool. So you have these different pools, but some of these things are being beta tested, meaning they can test them out in 1, 2, 3 years before it's even launched. Because sometimes when you're around people who just think like that, who just thinks in a different brain. When we're talking about NASA, those engineers or those people who's into science, that's their craft. So they think like that all the time. They're only around people who are going to be thinking and talking like that. So for you out there, again, that's why I say this channel is not for everybody, because I'm someone who likes to think like that. So I don't like to downplay my intelligence or my intellect, and have to kind of explain things in a way that some people just it's just never going to click for them because they're not going to do the work, right? But this is why it's my point, because AI isn't coming, right? It's not some future thing you need to prepare for anymore. It's already woven into how you live your daily life. And most people just have no idea. Now, again, there's people who don't use, like, well, hate AI, and you hear all these people are against it, but a lot of those people have never really got to learn it. And again, you have the sector who hate change, being traditional, sticking to something that they finally figured out how to do it, and they want to stick to it, and there's people, humans are gonna some humans are like that. Other humans, if it wasn't for the ingenuity and innovation, it would have never created more jobs. It would have never helped in certain areas that we need help in, more than just a human being, right? And that's the day and age that's here, and that's going to be continuing to grow. So this is just to kind of, again, show you opportunities for you that are out there that wants to look at the opportunities, regardless of what's going on, because there's a lot of stuff that's just happening at the same time, but you can't allow your mind to always see the negative in things, right? No matter what's going on. So Today, I want to talk about that. I wanted to talk about it by reading this article, and because once you see it, right, you can't unsee it anymore. And more importantly, once you understand it, you can actually use it to your advantage and see how this can probably adapt to your daily life. And those are things that I kind of do with AI. I still believe in the human in the loop, right? You have people that may go way left and say, oh, well, machine's going to do X, Y, Z, and this, that. It's going to take our jobs. It's going to do this. It's going to do that. But that's only for the companies or people who think in that way. But if I try to give people this analogy. If you are paying $350 for cable, but Netflix is here. You got other streaming channels is here. They give you the option to really watch what you want based on what they, provide on their platform, but you can watch it whatever you want, whenever you want, long as you pay that subscription fee, right? Compared to cable that you pay $350 for, probably more than that, because they want to sell you this bundle that you don't really need. And you have to watch what they're going to put on those channels because those channels don't really change up. Sometimes, when I go travel at a hotel or whatever and it's some cable that I'm watching, I really don't be trying to watch no TV. It's just like I'm bored, so I'm turning it on and be background noise. But it's usually still showing the same movies, and then they'll have them in a different language on another channel. Just like, to me, you're wasting my money. You're wasting my money. So if you are thinking of your household to manage your finances, why would you keep paying $350 and instead pay maybe 80 to 90 bucks for internet access, get you a smart TV, and watch, whatever you want, pay for some subscriptions. Maybe that will cost less than 50 bucks. Netflix is trying to raise the price again. I'll say that. But you can probably, get a little bundle yourself of a different media channels, streaming channels, for example, like Netflix, maybe Paramount, Tubi. People may not like Tubi, but I think Tubi is pretty cool for what it is. I don't even pay for it, but I'm glad that they offer the free, even though I watch, even though it has commercials. But it's just because I'm not going to pay for it right now. So you don't even have to for some of these platforms, right? But the whole idea, the whole point is to understand how AI is going to quietly reshape everyday life in 2026. And this article that I found here is just specifically talking about how AI and how different things adapted over time. So, for example, let me just read this section here. It says the advent of radio, TV, and video games took over living rooms as the leading forms of entertainment. Automobiles, boats, and planes made traveling domestically and internationally easier. Personal computers, laptops, smartphones, and tablets gave everyone more avenues to access information, develop an online personality, and join like minded communities. And now, the ever growing presence of AI tools, the ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, and more, has had major impact on how we process data, create visual art, learn coding, and handle other tasks. And that's what's about to happen now because ChatGPT has put out a few more features. So now people like myself who likes to develop, again, back in the day, and I don't know why some software developers are out here just trying to, again, they don't, it's a tradition thing I think of more so, but it's like, dude, if you already someone who understands to read code and know what you're looking for, you already have security in mind, why not use these tools? We've been using automation tools anyway. Python has been out for a long time. We've been using it to automate. So why are we acting like because AI here, this is so brand new and it's gonna and work is not done or AI slop? That's probably because of the stuff you're coming across, right? But you as a software developer or someone who thought to develop an app can now look at this and say, well, I don't need to develop an app. I don't need to pay for software anymore. I'm going to get into that in more of my videos for the next few videos here, because I think this is what's going to be changing based on what I've been researching and videos I've been coming across on YouTube. Some of these videos I come across aren't really big because I don't search for the big channels all the time. You can get a lot of stuff from people who are small YouTube channels, man, and they have a lot of freaking information, and ideas and things you can come across that people have not even tapped into yet, right? So I just wanted to bring up this article just to kind of tell you about the changes in 2026. Even though this was going to happen probably post ChatGPT era, but with Google, right now Google has changed up Maps. They have to ask for maps, right? So now you don't have to just search this, dentist near me, or restaurant, Italian restaurant near me, or any of that. Now you can literally talk to it in a way where it's going to find the best Italian restaurants near you and give you more information about them based on you just scrolling through Google Maps and just looking at the reviews and this and that. Now it's taking those reviews and creating a summary based on those reviews so that you don't have to scroll through every review, even though that's what some of us like to do, right? But now, even Google, if you go on Google, it's changed up. Now it'll have the YouTube videos. So if you're a YouTuber, you want to make sure your videos are SEO optimized with your descriptions, your titles, your thumbnails, so that when someone is going on Google to search something, your video can pop up to help them. It helps out a lot. I'm not going to lie. Um, you even have, um, let's see here, photos. Now we have content. Yeah, of course, there's some AI slop out there that people like to say. I think that's so funny when they say that. I'm not saying that there's not AI slop. You're just going to have people that are just going to do stupid shit. It can be very fucking annoying, but that's just what it is. But photos have even changed, right? Now, before AI was able to do things with photos, remember the commercials and promotions for Samsung and iPhone based on photos, how to take better photos, the quality of their lenses, different unique tools, Instagram, using different types of filters and all that stuff. So all that we were already playing with. But now that AI is here, you can do something a little unique. So I think the people that are claiming they think there should be another sector of AI stuff and blah blah blah. Again, traditional minds, or um, if you're someone who's just in the space, you may recognize things differently from other people, right? But it's not like there weren't movies and TV shows that already was showing this stuff, but now it's an actual manifested thing. It's manifested now, you know, and that's how you got to see things or understand the complexities of us, and how our brains work and how we manifest things as well. So now you got Banana Pro. Canva has stepped up. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't heard people speak of Adobe Pro in a long time, y'all. A long time. So it's like the content and photo stuff is being killed out here, and you don't even have to pay a lot for like a Canva that has taken over. You know what I'm saying? But again, look at it as when Blockbuster and Hollywood Video was out. They didn't take Netflix seriously and saying, "Yo, this is what's coming." Some of us out there who was in the early, I forgot the streaming service, but we were early in the music streaming service. And I think either 50 Cent and gosh, his name is skipping me right now, but a Soldier Boy. I think they were early to understand how streaming music was going to change a lot. So now you don't have to sell CDs on the street or out your car. Like the bros that be on Hollywood Boulevard trying to sell a CD in a digital world. It's crazy, right? But it's all about adapting to it. Now, I'm not saying everything is going to be positive, but I do think when things get into the wrong hands, the wrong minds, that's when things go left, actually. That's how you have to see it, good versus evil, God versus Satan, right? Um, and just for you religious folks, when you think about those stories, you got to understand when something tries to manipulate something that was meant to be good, that's a way to see it as well, right? Or how do we make this better? Yeah, data centers may be affecting, some of our quality around people and homes, but we have to say, yo, why can't you guys build these data centers in areas where there is hundreds of miles of people that don't even live around the area? Like, we got the land for it. Why can't you do that? You know, why can't we have somebody to come out and make sure the ecosystem around there is doing good, right? Why can't we grow an ecosystem around that if we need to ensure animals are safe, or there's running water that's clean, and when we're talking about energy, because there's a bunch of energy conversations going around, especially in California with the governor's race, right? You're talking about gas and oil and energy costs and all of that. So that's all happening right now at the same time. Then you have writing. I think this is a big one here because people who have a certain level of thought, meaning, I think, well, I know I did well from elementary all the way through. I didn't finish college. Don't get me wrong, but I wasn't someone who I was. I'm a self study person, so it wasn't hard for me to pick up science or any of that and engineer. That's something that's core in me, and I think because of being around or having my dad and also talking to other people who think like me, early on in my life. And but when it comes to writing, all through the internet, you'll see a bunch of unintellectual people just yapping in the comments, just yapping, and the commentary gets so annoying because to me, I can tell when someone's just using word salad all day, trying to sound smart instead of just freaking diving into some books, because those books, that reading over time, spending 15 to 30 minutes maybe at most just reading, is going to change your perception. It's going to help shape that, man, maybe what I was saying was a bunch of bullshit. And it's not saying what you're reading is fact. It has to be fact. It's just how it's going to get your mind to think differently. So when I've seen people talking about, oh, well, we know they're using AI because they're using this, or some people saying, well, if you're using AI, it's unauthentic. And to me, it's like, well, what about editors and publishers? So if I pay them to write my posts, or social media managers, if I pay them to write my posts and it's not me, would that be unauthentic? If we know that Trump's tweets are going out, for example, and people are reading them, but there's possibly someone who is trying to who's tweeting, as him, as his personality, right? They're doing that. That's what publicists do, or your editor is making sure it's right, or your PR person, right? So when I see that, I'm like, well, I don't think it's any different from the eye. The eye don't see it. I'm just want somebody to tell me, how is it so different? How is it such an unauthentic thing to have AI write you so that you don't have to spend money you don't have, especially if you're a solopreneur and you're just trying to build your business. And again, you have to think like that. How am I saving money with these AI tools now, or tools that can help me to grow my business, especially when it's like paperwork heavy, or I personally don't want to be on social media all day posting. Like, to me, that's a waste of time for me, because I like to build things and engineer things, or I'm still fixing things or upgrading things. So I rather have automation happening, but it's speaking as me, because I am talking to it. I am telling it what I want it to write, but it's just writing it in a way to convey a better message for me. Now, again, you just have to be more specific, you know, to make sure that it's given the right details. You want to make sure you're telling it to back your stuff up by research. So that's what I do. Most of my posts, I try to use research in them. I try to do all of that stuff because, again, coming from learning just in school, when you had to do your own research, your own book reports and all of that, that was already teaching you. I remember I used to have to do 10-page papers every week for one of my classes, right? So some of us already know about writing. I have books. I have books that uses this. So that tells you people who are like, oh, I know it's AI. That means you do not read books. You don't even read. So again, it's crazy, but again, writing helps you out because there are people who um, may get writer's block. I do. Man, I used to write a ton since I was a little girl. I used to write poems. I used to write my own songs. I used to do all of that. I really used to like writing. It's not that I don't like it now because I still got tons of notebooks, but it's just the fact that sometimes I do hit writer's block. An AI tool is a good way to help you around that. Healthcare, again, there's going to be good things and bad things about it. The good things I see with healthcare, when you're talking about watches that are taking your heartbeat, I even thought of an idea of a IoT device, with a watch or something like that, that can actually track what you're eating, your movements, if you sweat, all that stuff. It's probably some out there, but I'm just saying, so that your doctor, your primary care doctor, would already have that information fed to your chart so that they already know what they're looking at, you know, because some of them are seeing hundreds of patients in a week, in a month, and they're writing on some notes. So it can enhance. I look at it as these are tools enhancing what you're doing now, just like the hammer or other tools to maybe go hunting with. When we didn't have all of this technology, this type of technology, it's the same thing. So, but that's happening. Navigation. I remember in college, this was still early 2000s. Me and a college friend of mine, we decided to drive across the US from California all the way to Ohio. And we used a map. We had a paper map. Now, I still can read a map to this day, and I remember MapQuest was out too, but today I no longer have to do that because we have our phones. Now, if your phone breaks or it's dead or, you lose it, you need to go and get a map and you need to learn how to use it. And those are things that some people, you have to practice those things, right? But this is how far we have came, even with navigations. I remember when growing up, in the 90s, I would say late 90s, 2000s, but the navigation systems were starting to come out for cars. It was a thing to be like, man, I got a navigation system, you know? So these things really have changed, especially someone coming new to the town, you know, um, or they're just trying to find a certain spot or a hotel. Now it's not as complicated as it used to be, meaning you can track these things now. You can search for these things better and they're returned to you. Again, I don't try to look at everything as a negative. I do want to look into the positive stuff. Negative Nancy's, I'm like, man, it's not like I don't think like that because again, I come from a cyberspace where we already know there's threats. We already look at things as vulnerabilities, and we kind of hope, while trying to check, but we hope that when companies are building these apps or these tools or whatever, even with AI, that they do have security and governance in mind. They do have the consumer or the customer in mind and how you would be affected by it. AI, when we're talking about AI governance, we talk about ethics in AI. So if it's used, it's not saying one person deserves medical care and the other one doesn't. You know, when studies come out, right?